Okay, we're back with Romans, second part. And so, Paul explains, and he says, and not only this, but there was Rebekah also, when she had conceived twins by one man, our father Isaac. For though the twins were not yet born, and had not done anything good or bad, so that God's purpose according to his choice would stand, not because of works, but because of him who calls, it was said to her, the older will serve the younger. Just as it is written, Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated. Now, this is the second picture. Remember, Paul said, it is not as though the word of God has failed, for they are not all Israel who are of Israel, nor are they all children because they're Abraham's descendants. And so Paul gives two pictures. He gives the picture first of Ishmael and Isaac. Both were born to Abraham. Ishmael even was the firstborn son, but the promise of God came on Isaac, because Isaac was the son who was born out of faith, Sarah being his mother, whereas Ishmael was not born out of faith. And so that was the first picture where Paul is saying, remember, there was two sons. And not only did Abraham have two sons, but Isaac had two sons as well. Who were they? Esau and Jacob. And what happened with Isaac's two sons? Well, again, the firstborn became excluded, and the secondborn, contrary to society, contrary to biology, inherited the promise. So Paul's saying, not all Israel, not all those who are of Israel are Israel, and not all those who are of the flesh are counted as Abraham's descendants. So what happened in the case of Esau, the firstborn, and Jacob, the secondborn? Well, Esau was destined. He was born in line for the promise. By birth, by the natural order of things, Esau was the firstborn. Now, you and I, and probably a lot of people, could have seen those twins be born and thought, well, Esau just got lucky. He came out first. Got lucky. Firstborn son. Jacob, he didn't see it that way. And actually, you and I, if we saw Jacob, we may think, poor Jacob. If you had just been born in first place, you would have been the heir. But Esau was born first. Jacob, he didn't see it that way. Maybe he thought about his own father, Isaac and Ishmael. And so Jacob, he sees something. He sees that Esau does not believe in the promise. Oh yeah, Esau was born first. Oh yeah, Esau was in line, numero uno, for the blessing of God. Jacob sees something. Esau doesn't believe in the promise. He doesn't believe in it. Here's Jacob, numero dos, number two, not born in line for the promise. And he starts thinking, if Esau don't want it, I will take it. If he don't want it, I want it. And so one day, Jacob goes to Esau with a bowl of beans. And Esau is very hungry. And he says to Jacob, Jacob, I'm starving to death. Give me the bowl of beans. And Jacob says, okay, I'll give you the beans. Just promise me your birthright. And Esau says, oh, you want the birthright? Oh, the birthright. Oh, you can have the birthright. Just give me the beans. I'm hungry. And so Esau, being the firstborn son, he pawns off his birthright for a bowl of beans. And so time passes. And one day their father Isaac is old, and he's on his deathbed. And so Jacob goes into his father in disguise. And he puts the animal skin, I think a goat skin, over his arm, and he disguises his voice. And he walks in to his father's presence and pretends to be Esau. And he lets his father touch his arm and feel the goat skin. And he says to his father, Father, bless me. Lay your hand on me and bless me with the promise, with the birthright. And his father, thinking that it's Esau, he lays his hand on Jacob and he blesses him with the birthright. And Jacob leaves. Then Esau comes in and they discover what happened. They discover that Jacob has deceived his father. And they cry. And from those two acts, the birthright that had been destined from birth, and isn't that the case with the Jewish people? Is that not what Paul's saying? When he says the adoption as sons, of whom the Father, isn't that what Paul's saying? Same thing. So the birthright that Esau had been destined to receive from being born first, from the biological facts of the case, that birthright, it misses Esau and it comes on Jacob. And Paul's saying, they're not all Israel who are of Israel, nor are they all children, because they're Abraham's descendants. In other words, you can't say that the word of God failed just because Israel didn't believe. Just because Israel didn't believe, that didn't stop people from believing. And that didn't stop God from blessing people. So those are the two pictures that Paul starts with. And the next picture he gives is of Moses and Pharaoh.